talking about Dr. Bhushan Raju, our guest today. He is, of course, a professor in technology at the Sciences, Hyderabad, whose role has been pivotal in NIMS Hospital, which became the first center in South India to be considered by the International Society of Peritoneal Dialysis as a training center for PD. He is one of the principal investigators of the CKD task force by ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, to evaluate the prevalence of CKD in the adult urban population of India. He has presented along with his studies and students many scientific papers along with his students at national and international conferences, and of course, his amazing work published in Lancet, The Global Burden of Disease. He has a long list of awards to his name, ladies and gentlemen. The Professor H.L. Trivedi Gold Medal of Nephrology, to the meritorious University Teacher Award from the Government of Telangana, and of course to the latest one by IMA in 2020, naming him the Corona Warrior. Ladies and gentlemen, if I have to keep talking about Dr. Shri Bhushan Raju, we'll need a whole new episode and probably another session on today's program. So he's going to give us a lucid and thorough explanation of the genetic CKD disease, early signs and tests. Dr. Raju will begin his presentation, after which we will be asking him questions and he will be answering them. All right, over to you, Dr. Bhushan Raju.
So good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you all today evening and addressing you about a rather a medical and a complex topic called genetic disorders that involve the kidney and how we can detect the kidney disorders which are associated with the genetics. And the genetics as such is a difficult topic actually. It is not so easy to think of, and as such, the genetics is boring to me also basically. I was never so much impressed with the genetics, and I had to write a number of times during my MD day, MBBS days, and even MD days also. Even when I was writing appearing for civil services, the first question which I had to attempt was the genetics, related to genetics. I really hated it, and I really get confused. So many things. Why the genes, and why the genes? But you can't say like that in our routine day-to-day life. Why the genes? The genes will determine each and everything. Say how tall you should be, what should be your color, what should be your hair, and what should be your color of your eyes, and how long you should be your toes and the fingers, and what kind of a structure you are supposed to get. Everything is determined by genes. Not only that, the simply it's not external appearance alone. It is even the internally every organ how it should function. Everything is determined by the genes. Actually, you can't say that why I am like that. So why you are like that is because of your genes. Nothing but the genes. So you are supposed to bear everything because the way you are is everything is determined much before our birth. It is just at the time of conception in utero, within the womb. You are determined totally how you should be and what you are going to be. See, if you are a singer, it's all determined. That not that you are some extraordinary quality that you've fallen from heavens. And if you are an artist, it's also everything has come determined already before. And you cannot really compare that boy is taller and I'm shorter. That's why this girl is fair and I'm dark. Nothing like that. Everything is the genes. So also the diseases, and nothing escapes from your genes determining your life and including the death. Of course, the human beings also will do a lot of things mischievous, the good and bad, and everything also ultimately culminates in how your phenotypic appearance and how your attitude and how your basic thinking pattern, that is all going to affect your genes. And it is actually the two-way process. The genes determining how you should be, what you should be, and how you should be and what you should be also will be determined by your attitude and the nature and the behavior. Interestingly, your attitude, nature, behavior, everything again determined by the genes only. Of course, the environment effect will be there, and environment will definitely affect the genes. It's not the genes, whatever the manifestation of the genes, environment will definitely affect that particular thing. For example, if you have a tendency for the diabetes, and you can keep your diabetic tendency totally hidden in you for several years, but only thing is that your attitude of eating a lot and probably not having the physical activity, getting stuck to a sedentary lifestyle probably will make a difference. And your environmental effect, that is part of your environmental effect, that will affect your genes, and your genes will manifest very early. Instead of 40s and 50s, probably you will demonstrate that particular disease in 20s and 30s only. So everything is genetically determined. Everything is genetically determined, except your MLA position or minister position or MLA, except something like that. You are going abroad or something like that. Whether you can take a flight today or tomorrow, except these kind of things. Actually, everything is determined by the genes. Okay, and that's why we can't really separate out our inner and outer aspects away from the genes, and we are supposed to have a genetic role to play everything in part of our life. And what about the kidney disease? And you people are all concerned about the kidney disease, including me. Probably nowadays I'm a little bit less worried about the kidney diseases, more worried about the COVID and the society. And as I've been giving a lot of talks related to the COVID rather than the kidney diseases. And if anybody is asking me to talk about the kidney disease, it's something like coming from different heavens. Actually, what kind of a topic I'm supposed to talk about? Did I forget about the kidney diseases totally? No, no, no. But it's approximately whatever the way I was trained by nephrology. It is going to be there now. I'll be teaching you something about the kidney diseases, making you appraise you of what is actually the kidney diseases and how genetically linked disorders are there. But I'm telling you that you also learn a little bit about the COVID now, how to protect yourself away from the COVID infections, but which I have been telling and everybody is telling since the beginning that the patients with the kidney diseases are more at risk of developing corona infection compared to the other people, and also the complication rate is very, very high. So with such an alarm initial itself, I'm going to start a little bit about how the kidney diseases and the genes are interlinked. And as you know that the kidney diseases, that 1 in 3 adults, but approximately I can grossly tell you that 1 in 10 people knowingly or unknowingly will be having a kidney disease. And this is estimation of 10 to 15% from various countries, and including our own country, it's almost nearly 18% of the people are having a hypertension related kidney diseases, and so many people knowingly or unknowingly. Interesting aspect of kidney disease is that it is not externally manifesting by any other clinical features, and you just totally silent for several years, including probably even decades, and then one day or the other it will come out with some kind of a manifestation. But till then, everybody thinks that they're all healthy and all, and probably it is imperative for me or important for you people also to learn about the anatomy of the kidney, and which you must have heard from other people, I don't know, but still it is important for me to tell you the anatomy. There are 2 kidneys on either side of the spine in the back of the abdomen, and it is actually far away from your waist. Most of the people think that my backache is basically related to kidney diseases, and Dr. Saab, I'm getting a lot of backache nowadays. I am worried that I have some kidney diseases, but backache is nothing to do with the kidney diseases, and you can just see how far away from the so-called backache or area of the backache, or probably the back so-called waist area, how away are the kidneys in the anatomically positioned within the abdominal cavity, very, very high up, and you don't have to worry that every backache is related to the kidney disease. And you know the kidney is very well supplied with the blood from the heart, and also whatever the bad blood that is called the venous blood is manufactured in the kidney, it will go back to the heart to get pumped into the lungs so that it can take oxygen, and it becomes a good blood, and it is something like that, it circulates, and ultimately whatever the urine that is manufactured within the kidney and will come down through the 2 ureters on either side from each kidney, and it will get settled in the urinary bladder, and it gets stored in the urinary bladder till at least 150 to 200 ml of urine is stored in the urine. Then you feel like passing urine, then you'll get a severe urge to go and pass urine. But when it becomes 400 to 500 ml and above that, you'll get an intense urge to pass urine. That's how you feel like passing urine, and this is a simple phenomenon. And as soon as you drink water, after 15 to 20 minutes after, you'll get an initial feeling of getting into pass urine. So it is very important for all of us to not to drink too much of water before going to the bed. And if you before going to the bed, you better vacate or totally evacuate your bladder and then only go to the bed so that you can have a comfortable sleep. So it is important for us to drink at least 30 to 40 minutes before going to the bed so that you can evacuate, totally empty the bladder, then go to the bed so that you can sleep comfortably. See, this is another small structure, cut section of the kidney, how it is. So this part of the kidney, which is called renal cortex, is the one which is the functioning unit, and from which these are pyramids, and where you can just see the droplets of urine coming out from this particular papillae, and this is the place where most of the time the kidney stones are situated and located in this area. Many times because of the genetic disorders, you can see the kidney also totally being replaced by small stones. That is called nephrocalcinosis, and this is a place where you get a stone which is classically known to everyone that, sir, Dr. Sir, my cousin has got a small kidney of 5 mm stone, and this is the place where those particular stones are situated. So this is called nephrolithiasis. And this is the structure of the kidney, why there are two kidneys on the other side. But interesting thing is that many people can be born even with a single kidney. And another, sometimes the two kidneys can get attached to each other and one side only. That is called cross-fuse ectopia. Instead of being two on either side, there can be only one big large kidney, which is because of fusion of both the kidneys. And sometimes the kidney can be on one side, one kidney can be here, and the second kidney can be nearer to the urinary bladder on the lower side. So this is actually ectopic kidney. Many people with a kidney failure will have some ectopic kidney. And this is cross-fuse ectopia, which is a 2. And they can be this urinary bladder, ureters are both sides. There are only single ureter on both sides. But interesting thing is that sometimes this ureter can be two. There can be two ureters, and the two ureters can open up into the urinary bladder again. Here also the pelvis, it is only the single pelvis, you can see this is called pelvis, where I told you that there can be some kidney stones. This also can duplicate itself into two. There can be two pelvis actually, it can be that's called duplex kidney. So it is very, very common to have these kind of structural abnormalities, and many of us, the people who are having some other kidney diseases, will have these kind of anatomical abnormalities. So it's important for you to know that though this is the normal structure seen in a human being, but this need not be seen in even all the times all the way in the routinely in every person who is otherwise known as healthy. So the healthy doesn't mean that everything should be absolutely normal. In that way, nobody can be absolutely healthy, because even person, if you routinely think that your heart should be on the left side, then there can be some people who can have a heart on the right side also. So here also the kidney structure is like this, but there can be a lot of variations within the structure of the kidney and its function, which are genetically determined all over. So how the kidney should be on the other side, why the kidney should be on the lower side only. The urinary bladder also will not be functioning normally. As I said, 150 ml of urine, 400 ml of urine, where you feel like going urge. Many people will get even with the 50 ml also. Many people can't even hold 400 ml of urine also. But we can wait for some time till before you go to the washroom to pass urine. But that need not really happen. And even in case of neurogenic bladder. So these are also all structural. Many of them are genetically mediated. So this is grossly the structure which can go wrong in a different direction. As I stated routinely, the description of the bean-shaped organ located in the retroperitoneum, and it is all approximately more than 9 centimeters to 11 centimeters long. But interesting thing is that as kidney disease patients, most of us, all of us know that it is less than 9 centimeters in small contracted kidneys. And so also the weight also will come down. Small contracted kidneys less than 9 centimeters, the ecotexture also will be something different in them. And what are the functions of the kidney? And by this time, the person with a kidney failure also know that most of the things are abnormal. They become abnormal in the human body with the kidney failure. So every function of the kidney gets deranged. It is a small mnemonic for the people to understand, remember, recollect very easily. A wet bed. A is the acid-base balance. The kidney is a very, very interesting and very brainy organ. It knows how to differentiate between good and the bad. And because human beings, all of us have brain, and we differentiate what is good and what is bad. But within the body, who determines that? It is the kidney that determines which is good and which is bad, which is excess and which is low, which is required and which is not required. So it retains all the good things and removes all the bad things in the form of urine. So the acid which is collected in the human body, because of so many activities that the body does every day in and day out, all those things, the rubbish, everything will be removed by the kidney comfortably. The acid, that is called acid, which is basically bad to the human body inside, which is bad to the muscles, bones, nerves, and every organ. So that will be removed comfortably by the kidney. So A is the acid, and you can drink water one day 10 liters, other day only 1 liter. And even in summer, if you take 5 liters also, it is insufficient. In the winter, you take only ½ liter and you immediately go to the washroom. See how the kidney can balance that. So it is a water balance which is important. Then electrolytes, you take a lot of fruits one day, and for 10 days you will not eat a single fruit also. What are electrolytes? One day you take excess of salt and you forget to take salt other day. But all these things are electrolytes which are balanced comfortably and very, very graciously by the kidneys, and various toxins which are produced by our several activities in the human body. So many toxins will be produced, which is important also for us. And when we work in the kitchen, you will get a lot of garbage and water. So many other things will be released. So all these things will be removed, and the kidney will remove such kind of toxins which the body works hard throughout the day. And blood pressure control, kidney releases a hormone called renin. This renin acts on the blood vessels so that our blood pressure can be maintained very well. And you know that every patient with a kidney disease will have a high blood pressure. Very, very rarely few people will not have any kind of a blood pressure. That is also very fun aspect of the particular disease. So, but the kidney is diseased and the blood pressure is invariably a feature. That's why I always say that anybody who has got a high blood pressure, invariably his or her kidneys are unhealthy. So those people who get hypertension or high blood pressure, they're supposed to think that their kidney is unhealthy. But I'm not saying that their kidney is damaged or something like that. High blood pressure is a manifestation of unhealthy kidneys. So very important. Then erythropoietin, you know that many of us will be buying erythropoietin, which is expensive hormone, which we take every day, every alternate day, or every dialysis, or probably every week, sometimes every month. These are the erythropoietins. Erythropoietin is a hormone which is synthesized in the kidney only. This is something like a vehicle, which is something like a lorry or a bus, which transports the people from one place to the other place. So erythropoietin is also something like a vehicle which transports the hemoglobin from one place to the other place, so that it carries the capacity to hold the oxygen. Hemoglobin is the one which has the capacity to hold the oxygen, and this particular thing is taken from one part of body to the other part, especially to the bone marrow, to create a hemoglobin for us. So erythropoietin is an important vehicle. When the vehicle is not there, the entire system is blocked. You have seen the migrants during the lockdown period. They could not even go anywhere. They were going by walk. So we have seen, we also felt bad by looking at the migrants during the lockdown period. They were unable to walk across. So they had no vehicle, no transportation system within the society. And so also if there is transport system in the form of lack of erythropoietin by damaged kidneys within the body, you will not get transport of the hemoglobin and so also the oxygen. Oxygen being so important and essential for the human survival, you see when the oxygen is not there, every cell, every organ will be craving for oxygen. So it is actually the hunger for oxygen which really damages every cell. That's why the kidney disease has got so many manifestations, and every organ in the human body will get damaged because of that. And vitamin D is again, whatever vitamin D, which is the basic ingredient of vitamin D, is there on the skin. So it is actually the sun rays which ignites the particular vitamin D basic material, which gets changed by the sun rays, and then it goes to the liver and gets modified. Then ultimately it goes to the kidney, and within the kidney that further gets modified and becomes a hormone called vitamin D hormone. And this vitamin D hormone is one which maintains the strength of our bones and the muscles and so many other activities. Now during the corona times, you must have heard that people should take vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D also, because vitamin D also improves our immune system. So vitamin D, when the vitamin D metabolism gets deranged, when the vitamin D is not synthesized only, when the function in the presence of a damaged kidneys, then how can we get a vitamin D? So automatically you will see the strength of the muscle will not be good, the bones of the strength of the bones will not be good, and so also the immune system. That's why our people will get kidney disease patients will get a lot of infections just like that. So it is important for us to know about why we require vitamin D and why we need to take good food and why we need why this disease manifestations. And you know why the kidney diseases. Most common is the diabetes, hypertension, and diabetes leading cause of kidney failure across the world. And I don't have to really tell you that diabetes runs in families, and many people will have their family members having diabetes, and especially after 40 to 50 years, the most common cause of kidney damage is the diabetes. Diabetes disease is the most common disease in the world, which is probably the supreme disease among the world, among all the diseases. If the diabetes is not there, 2/3 of our population would have actually stayed back. 2/3 of our population. If the high blood pressure, hypertension is not there, 50% of the population would have stayed back. Just imagine how much population will be retained if these two diseases are not there. So then you can just feel that it is a diabetes and hypertension are the two killers in the world, which is actually eliminating maximum number of people from the world, from the planet to the other planet, pushing them to the other planet. And these two are genetically linked. There are so many diseases which are associated with the genes of diabetes and hypertension. That's why a father who has got hypertension and diabetes probably will be giving the same thing along with his properties to the children. So don't blame your father when you acquire a lot of properties and lands, money, gold and everything, and at the same time your father gives hypertension, diabetes also to you. So don't get worried, and you have to take the properties along with these diseases also called diabetes and hypertension. So also the family history. As far as the kidney disease is concerned, a strong family history of certain disorders can run in families, And you also can really think that anybody who has got a family history of kidney disease, rest of all the family members should be screened thoroughly, whether they also can probably get disease or not. And also I said that the heart disease is also a kind of a genetic disorder only, especially when they get a premature coronary artery disease. A father who gets a kidney heart disease in 30s and 40s, and a mother who gets in 40s and 50s is probably genetic risk factors for the children. So any of our brothers and sisters having a heart disease in 40s and 50s also is a genetically predetermined risk for us. So these things are very, very important for us. Obesity, I don't have to tell you. Many of the family members, if one member is obese, rest of the people also can be obese. Not only that, it's genetically determined. Their family attitude towards the food and sedentary lifestyle also makes a difference. So that also is very, very important. And there are some races and ethnicity groups which are genetically determined to get a high blood diseases. Something like Africans are there. Africans have more tendency to develop kidney disease and hypertension. And of course, the age. It doesn't mean that all the genetic disorders will come in the childhood only. And there are some genetic disorders which will manifest in 40s and 50s. And like diabetes is the genetic disorder, but it will manifest in 40s and 50s. There's some very important genetic disorder which all of you know, autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. Just imagine, then you must have heard many people telling that they have a polycystic kidney disease which is first time seen in 20s and 30s, and they get a failure in 50s and 60s. See, the same genetic disorder which manifested several years after the birth, but it is supposed to be determined at the time of birth itself, even at the, not even at the time of birth, even within the womb. When you are inside the womb also, it is already there, the PKD tendency, which is already written on the chromosomes in the form of genetic language, and which will manifest several years, probably 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 decades to manifest in the form of a disease. So that's why we are lucky in many attempts that many of the diseases, they need not manifest. And when we acquire so many genes from the parents, then how come we don't manifest during their lifetime? Fortunately, the nature is so good and wonderful towards the human beings that most of the genes which are bad, most of the genes which carry the diseases, they'll get nullified. They'll become futile and they won't manifest at all during the lifetime. That's why we are all saved. So many people will be worried that Dr. Saab, my father had a kidney heart failure at the age of heart disease at the age of 42 only. Now I am 45. I did not get, but I am afraid that. But you do not worry about it. Some of the genes, there may be a gene with you, but the gene got nullified. Maybe there may be some other good genes which probably will close down the effect of this particular bad gene. So that's why we don't manifest each and everything good. So it doesn't mean that a great singer will have a singer who is a good singer, his son, and a great painter need not have a good painter. As Sachin Tendulkar's son is also may not be a good cricketer. And it is something like that. So there's so many things. So also, every one of you need not think that if you have a kidney disease, doesn't mean that you'll carry the same genes which are carrying the kidney disease to your offspring, that is your children and afterwards. So you don't have to worry about. So every property you don't have to give it to your child, isn't it? So we don't really give each and everything good and bad to our children. So these are the manifestations of kidney diseases, and it is anemia. So many other manifestations. And anemia is a very important aspect of kidney diseases. And you know that you not only you look pale, you'll have lethargy and difficulty in breathing, and several manifestations of the heart and renal muscle dystrophy, and you can see the GI tract, loss of interest in the diet, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, anorexia, and you boys and girls will have so many hormone disorders. And the skin also will change. The skin will become pale yellow and sometimes many times dark, and it will be itching. The people will have a confusion. People will be irritable, and suddenly sometimes they get into hypertension and they get into coma. There can be fits also. And hypertension will lead to a lot of complications, and you'll be taking a lot of tablets to take control of your blood pressure. And ultimately, many people will have a heart failure where the heart function will pumping activity of the heart will go down. And this is the one which is not seen to you externally, is the renal osteodystrophy. Not only the muscle weakness which you feel and demonstrate, bone pains also you'll feel and get demonstrated. But the only thing is that the hyperparathyroidism, which is the feature in kidney failure patients, will not manifest. But only thing is the bones will get damaged significantly inside. So this is one of the main features of renal failure. So the symptoms are the high blood pressure. As I said, whoever has got high blood pressure, they are supposed to know about it. And none of these features are seen initially. At least the kidney should get damaged by 80 to 90%. Then only you will see that the kidney is actually damaged. But initially stages where the kidney is bad by 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, 70, you will not have any kind of manifestations. Most of the times it is accidental discovery or detection of the kidney disease which is seen. And most of our histories, if you talk to any of your friends, you just see, and it is actually accidental discovery of kidney disease. It is routine investigations. So for example, you are getting investigated before your employment. You will suddenly find that there is some proteinuria, and your family member has got a kidney disease. You routinely get investigated. You also can suddenly see some protein. And when you go to the doctor with your cough, fever, something like that, then suddenly you find that your blood pressure is very high. Why? The BP is high. Routine test shows that the kidney is already small. So this is how most of the times you get detected. But as the kidney disease advances, as we go in stage 5 or 4, and with the kidney function deteriorated by more than 70, 80, 90%, then you will have many of these features, which is something like a difficulty in breathing. Unusual fatigue is something like very weakness and weight loss. When whatever you feel like you don't feel like eating, there will be a lot of feeling of vomiting sensation and also vomitings, and a bad breath and bad taste in the mouth, and lack of interest in the food. And sometimes you can see swelling of the feet, swelling of the face. There can be puffy eyes around, and the skin will get itching, and you'll see some cloudy urine and some passing of some protein in the urine, and muscle cramps. These are various symptoms which you see only when the kidneys fail by more than a significant thing. So it is something like that. So you all should know about these are the features. But some of your people who are listening to me and who had renal failure long back and who got transplanted, who are actually on dialysis now, you can recollect many of these symptoms are known to every one of you. So it's very important to know. And the disease of the kidney, and there are 3 compartments: the glomerular, tubular, interstitial, vascular. The genetic disorders can involve any of these 3 compartments. And there are secondary other systemic disorders like hypertension, diabetes, which are generalized. They are not restricted to the kidney alone. In fact, some of the diseases will not touch the kidneys also. For example, diabetes seen in only 30-40% of the people. See, somebody has got a gene that is supposed to come with him from the parents, and he is supposed to manifest diabetes in the lifetime. He need not really have it unless some other gene which facilitates the manifestation of the particular gene. If the diabetes is there, doesn't mean that he is supposed to have a kidney disease, kidney damage gene also. So for that, in order to get a kidney disease secondary to diabetes, he's supposed to not only to have a diabetes gene, he's supposed to have even the genes for the kidney damage also. When these 2 genes are there, probably they can be a diabetes related to kidney disease, or a kidney disease that is secondary to diabetes. So there are so many genes involved. It is not just one gene. That is why the science is very, very difficult, and the research is going on, and very difficult to find out that these are the genes. If you find out 10 genes today, and tomorrow another 12th one will come, saying that this also could be one of the reasons. That's why there are so many hundreds of genes which will manifest for one disease like diabetes. And just imagine, diabetes is going to kill the kidneys, going to have a heart disease, going to have a nerve disease, going to have a eye problem, going to have a brain problem. See, everything is genetically determined. You need to have so many genes to develop one organ. That's why the diabetes people will have only one kidney problem. The rest of the things are okay. And only some people will get diabetes related only eye problem, nothing to do with the kidney and other things. That shows that he has got only gene only for the eye, not for the kidney. That's why every diabetic patient will not have every disease related to diabetes. So that's why many people are spared. That's what I'm telling you. That only 30 to 40% of the people with diabetes only will have a kidney disease. That shows that 60 to 70% of the people with diabetes will not develop any kind of a disease. So that's very, very important for you people to know about it. As I stated, hypertension gets its origin from kidneys. When the kidneys are unhealthy, you'll get hypertension. But do you think every patient with hypertension will have a damaged kidney? No. It won't happen like that. And when the parents are having hypertension, doesn't mean that every child is supposed to get it. As I said, some of the genes will not manifest by any means. So several autoimmune disorders are there. SLE, you must have heard SLE. SLE also is known to, but SLE will have genetic disorder. SLE also runs in families. I have mother who has SLE, and the daughter also has got SLE. And some of the infections are also genetically mediated, and many of the cancers are also genetically mediated. And all these things can involve the kidneys also secondary, which can lead to kidney damage. So these are if you really look at the most common causes, diabetes, hypertension are taking the major role. And you can see the small 1.6% polycystic kidney disease, which is actually a genetic disorder. And there are 7% of glomerular disease, of which 50% of them are genetic disorder. And 18 point other diseases, 50% of them will be again genetic disorders only, like the diabetes, hypertension, not just the PKD. If you really look at that, you think that PKD is the only genetic disorder. No, no, no. All of them, many of them are genetic disorder, and it which can run in families. Something like glomerular disease, for example, IgA nephropathy. I have seen the siblings having IgA nephropathy. I have seen membranous nephropathy. I have seen the membranous nephropathy running in families, with the father having, the son having, the elder brother having, younger brother having kidney disease with and membranous nephropathy. That's how it runs. So also nephrotic syndrome in the childhood and minimal changes, all these things you must have heard. Every disease here is actual genetic disorder, including amyloidosis. Previously, when we were in the medical college, we used to think that amyloidosis, only 1 or 2% of them are genetic disorders, nothing. But amyloidosis runs in families. There are so many genes are being detected now, which will link amyloidosis leading to renal failure. Minimal change disease, FSGS, membranous, MPGN, all of them are nephrotic syndromes, are genetic disorders. And crescentic GN, IgA nephropathy, as I already stated, is a genetic disorder. SLE is a strong genetic disorder, which we see. I've seen families having SLE disorder. So these are the three compartments. The one in the purple, the one in the brown color is a glomerulus, which is something like a filter, and that is one compartment. The second one is the blue ones and the purple ones, and the yellow ones are the tubules, which is again another compartment. And the white space between these small tubules is called interstitium. So you can have a problem either in the filter, that is called glomerulus, or in the tubules, or that is called tubular disorders, or in the interstitium, that is called interstitial disorders, or a combination of tubules and interstitium called tubulo-interstitial disorders. And everything has got some other genetic disorders. I can label some of them here. The glomerulus, that's called congenital nephrotic syndrome in a child. The child who has a nephrotic syndrome, that is passing huge amounts of protein in the urine, and they become puffy, totally puffy, something like a water blotted. That's called nephrotic syndrome. That is seen sometimes in first year, second year of life. Just imagine how the parents will be thinking about the child. They'll be devastated. Their dreams will be shattered by looking at the child who is totally blotted up. See, that's how pathetic the situation for the parents. I've seen so many parents who are feeling very bad and sick by looking at the child with nephrotic syndrome. Unfortunately, this is a genetic disorder, but good number of the people will improve also. And all of you know about the Alport syndrome, which is also a genetic disorder, which also is from the glomerulus. And we have some other tubules, proximal tubule, PKD. This is very, very well known to all of you, the polycystic kidney disease. And not only PKD, you have a primary proximal tubule, which is like a Fanconi syndrome, renal tubular acidosis, and Lowy syndrome. See, there are so many syndromes. See, disease is involving only one particular organ, one particular entity, and only manifestation restricted to that. It's a kidney disease, the disease of the kidneys, heart disease of the heart. But the Fanconi syndrome is the one which is a conglomeration of several such disorders involving several organs here and there. So there's so many manifestations which are unrelated, are interlinked to each other, but they are unrelated to each other. Then it is called syndrome. They move together. Most of the diseases, they move together, making a syndrome. So syndrome is manifestation of multiple disorders in a putting in one way. Something like a Barth syndrome, Gitelman syndrome, and also the PKD also will have so many other manifestations. Collecting that here also again, the Liddle syndrome, all of them are genetically mediated. Many of them will manifest only in the form of hypertension and some other manifestations. So it is very important for us to know. See, these are the names, which I'm not going to really tell you what is the gene and all. And this is only to show you and frighten you that how the kidney disorders are genetically mediated. And you can see the terms here: childhood nephrotic syndrome, FSGS, and so many familial variants, and so many. These are the genes which are involved in that. This is the product of the particular abnormal gene, and this is how inheritance, autosomal recessive, autosomal dominant. Probably I will be able to tell you how what is meant by autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive. And this is Alport. Alport's probably I heard from the host that probably you people are keen in knowing about Alport syndrome. And this is actually you can see there are so many variants of Alport syndrome, where the glomerulus, the filter within the kidney, gets damaged secondary to the change in the genes, and you can see that. And this is cystic kidney disease, and you know that's a bean-shaped kidney, which is a smooth something like that. You can just see this with the cyst. Something like if you take that, it's something like a mango, and you can see this is actually It's a bunch of grapes. This is something like a bunch of grapes. And here also, there are two varieties. The autosomal dominant is the one which is seen in the adults. Autosomal recessive is the one which is seen in the children. So this is dominant and recessive are something different, which I'll tell you, which ADP are usually seen in the adults. They are the autosomal recessive early in the childhood. In both the cases, you'll see large kidney totally. Can you please mute some of you, please? Some of you please mute, please. And there are skin manifestations also. And see that we can detect this is the lupus nephritis, lupus SLE patients, and see this particular thing. Vasculitis also, which comes in the genetic form. You can see the rash, which is seen in the lower limb. See, you can this kind of a rash in the lower limb. And the diabetic people will have some of the skin disorders, which can be one of the early manifestations. In fact, this is not seen here. Acanthosis nigricans is the one which is the genetically determined, which will determine the future that these people are going to get diabetes. So this is a blackish discoloration of the skin, which is something like a patch you can see on the nape of the neck and on the back and the face. You'll see black color discoloration, that is called acanthosis nigricans. And any obese person who has got some kind of a blackish lesions on the neck and the chest and the back, they are supposed to have diabetes tendency in the future. This is the tuberous sclerosis, is a condition where you can see angiokeratomas, the small lesions over the face, especially on the neck, especially on the nose, and you can see small lesions here on the face. This is called angiokeratomas, which is called tuberous sclerosis. They also will have some kind of this thing. But I should tell you, I think there's something is missing in this genetic disorder. This autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive. Autosomal dominant is the one dominant, that the term itself shows that it's a dominant. It runs in families and nobody can really escape because it's a dominant. Everybody will have this gene, abnormal gene. But interesting thing is that everybody may not really manifest. Everybody need not really manifest. Can you just call me, Nana, later? I'm in a meeting. You please should not call me so many times. I'm in a meeting, please. And autosomal dominant, everybody in the family gets a disease, but everybody need not manifest. For example, autosomal dominant kidney disease. It is there since birth, but some people will develop kidney failure in 20s, some people develop in 40s, some people in 60s. And it is also said that everybody will have a cystic kidneys by 60s. But thing is that everybody need not have renal failure. I have a few grandfathers in 70s and 80s with a cystic kidney, but the kidney's function is absolutely normal. But on the contrary, his own grandson in 25, 26, he had kidneys failed by 26, 27 only. The same gene. So manifested one way in the father, one way in the grandfather, one way in the grandson. So everybody will have their own way. And body, not only the genes, your attitude, your mentality, everything is determined for the disease. So disease, though genetically determined, it can be modified by your attitude. So don't worry about the genes which are already there. Change your attitude towards the disease. Change your mentality towards the disease. Change your thinking process towards the disease. And think that when you are supposed to get a disease, so how can you escape from that? See, you can escape from your enemy who is sitting opposite to you. You can run behind. You can go even to the America. You can go to other country. You can go even to the somewhere above. But how can you just get rid of a disease which is there written at the time of your birth itself inside your body? You can't really escape. So escapism is probably the worst kind of a disease a human being can suffer. So you can't escape from the disease. Any disease you can't escape. Rather, you can be with that. You can be good with that. You can have a good rapport with that, and you can share your life with the disease, and you can live a comfortable life. And that is possible. That is possible. That's what I'm telling you. It's an attitude. Attitude of person determines the outcome of the disease. It is not the genes. Genes will simply manifest. It is simply a notes written. But how to read, how to understand is your attitude. So chromosomes will have all the diseases written, but your understanding, the way you talk, the way you think, the way you behave with the disease is very, very important. That's ultimately determined by your attitude. And attitude is again determined by some of the genes, but many times it is the environment, it is the people around, it is the family, it is the friends, it is the society, it is your working atmosphere. Everything will determine what should happen to your disease. So outcome of the disease basically determined by your attitude rather than the genes. So genes will initiate the process, and the continuation is how to continue, whether to continue or not, and for how long to continue. Everything is determined by attitude. So I feel that I think I should stop it here, and I think should not really talk more about the genes. And by this time you understood that most of the kidney diseases are genetically mediated, and the genes can be modified by your attitude and your thinking process and your approach towards the disease. and probably your family, not just simply by giving a genes to you, can really make a difference to you by supporting you, by helping you coming out of the crisis. And it's very, very important. So don't think that your family is giving the disease, but your family can definitely make you a disease free by the attitude and approach towards you. So ultimately, dear friends, and I would like to tell you all that. So let the genes sing whatever the way it can sing. Let the genes be written, whatever the poem, whatever the story they can write. But it is ultimately how you sing is more important. A song is written already, but how you sing is more important. When you can have a good voice, when you can sing in a better way, why don't you sing in the best possible way? Why do you think that the lyric, whatever is written, the lyric is already written? You take 100 ways of singing the same lyric. You must have seen the singers. Today is supposed to be the birthday of Bharat Ratna MS Subbulakshmi. Just see how her golden voice and how her divine voice, and she sang so many songs, and the same song you can never listen to that particular song again from anybody's voice. Actually, see the same lyric, and you also can sing, I also can sing, but see the voice. So it is actually the lyric is the same, the genetic disorders are the same. How you sing is very, very important. How you approach your disease is very important. So don't worry about the diseases, and you modify your thinking process, and you be suitable for the particular disease, and you can really win over the disease only with your aptitude and approach. Your genes can really get nullified, and genes can really go in vain without any manifestation, without troubling you. So genetic disorders are there, but you are very important to the society and the nature, and you be the way, because the nature always tries to protect. Genes will be there, but the human race is also there. Corona will human generation, we are all supposed to be there despite having diseases. So it is ultimately your approach and attitude makes a difference. And be good and stay safe. Thank you very much for the kind attention and the patient hearing, and thank you one and all.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So, of course, I totally agree with you that how we deal with the disease is very important, and how our family deals with it. And I believe as a patient, we have one responsibility, is that to be thankful that we have doctors to look after us. And if we are happy and try to be positive, it also gives strength to our family members to take us forward. Right? Also, now we've got some questions that have come from the people who have actually known about this session. And I'm going to ask you those questions on those people's behalf. If a patient has the Alport syndrome and has had a second transplant in 2018 and got married last year, he wants to know whether this Alport syndrome will transfer or pass on to his children.
See, this Alport's has got a tendency, autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, and even X-linked also. And there's so many people will have this kind of a disease, and everybody need not really have a transmission of this particular disease. And genetically now we are comfortable in checking the blood test, and some of the tests can be done to the offspring whether they have a tendency for the disease or not. So they don't have to worry about, as I stated, very interesting aspect of the nature is that when some of them are not really good and the nature tries to eliminate, it is the survival of the fittest and survival of the fittest. So it is the very Darwin, the principle of survival of the fittest and the struggle for the existence. And as a human being, we don't have to struggle. And because human race is the best, ultimately the supreme race in the nature, and we are going to survive. But only thing is the struggle for the fittest, whatever is the fitter. But so many times these particular genes, they get nullified and they wouldn't have any manifestation. That is why we are still there. Just imagine our great grandfathers also would have had so many disorders which are genetic, which are not there with us. And over a period of time, they get nullified. And ultimately, the next generation itself, probably it need not really manifest. That's why the human race is running. I have seen the ADP, just imagine autosomal dominant ADPKD, which is such a dominant disorder, and everybody is supposed to have the disease. But how come we are seeing even now, after several centuries in the nature, we are still seeing them? That shows that everybody need not have the similar kind of a manifestation. As I stated, 7 to 10% of the people only will have a kidney failure with a PKD, and Alport's also the same. But probably some of the Alport's children might have some problem with the hearing. Some people will have some problem with the eyes, with a little bit of problem, which can be corrected surgically. And even hearing problem also can be corrected. Interestingly, they don't have to manifest the kidney problem alone. So that is the beauty in the nature. So nature will not really curse keep on cursing the only one generation, every one family, just like that. So nature, why the nature will be so uncourteous towards you? Nature is something like a mother, so it will never really be so harmful. If you are cursed, if you think that you are cursed by the kidney disease, definitely you are having some other good entity in your life. And your next generation, really, though it is a genetic disorder, everybody need not have. There may be some eliminating process because our birth is very, very random. See, for example, if there are 10 children and every second, seventh, ninth child will have a kidney disease of the same disease. But how come the other people could escape that? Because it's randomly chosen. Because it's all random process. Everybody may not really manifest. That's why there's the same kind of a genetic disorder the elder brother will have, and interestingly, the second younger brother will not have. Probably if they happen to have another third, fourth child, fifth sibling, probably one of them might have actually had a similar kind of a disease. So that's how nature eliminates. Nature eliminates the things which are unwanted. So that's why you don't have to worry about, and for the sake, you don't have to sacrifice your life saying that I don't want to get married, I don't have to have a child, I don't want my child to suffer like that. No, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Do you think a great singer will think that my children all will be great singers only? Why do you have to think like that? It's not really possible. So also the disease.
Sir, can I ask you for a favor? Can you please stop sharing your screen right now?
Yes, shall I? Okay.
Yeah, because since your PowerPoint has got over.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So now we move on to our second question for the evening, and that would be polycystic kidney disease. Our kidney size will increase, and at the time of my transplant operation, the doctors have not removed it. Why? And are they still working in some percentage or not working at all? Or are they working 100%?
Not only PKD, we don't have to remove anybody's kidneys from the original position. You know that I showed you some anatomically where the kidneys are located, and I showed you a place called urinary bladder, and the new kidney is kept nearer to the urinary bladder. So we don't have to remove. But autosomal dominant polycystic kidney is one condition where sometimes we might have to remove one kidney, or sometimes both the kidneys also. There are some indications when to remove and when not to remove. In fact, when not to remove is more important than when to remove. So these are the large kidneys of 23, 24, 25 centimeters. So where will be the place inside the abdomen then to keep the new kidney? For example, one side on the right lower part, you are supposed to have a new kidney. And if that particular right kidney is such a huge one, very large one, say 30 centimeters kidney, where is the place for the new kidney? So you remove the kidney and keep the new one. Or otherwise, if the cysts are so big and they're bleeding every time, and there's a lot of blood inside the cyst, and there are so many stones also. And you know that the PKD people have a tendency for the kidney stones. So there are a lot of stones, and every time there is infection, every second month, third month, go to the doctor with a stone-related infection, and the kidney gets further problematic, and there will be some bleeding. Then why do you have to keep such a kidney? And with such a good Samaritan kidney, for you, the doctors did not remove that. Your kidneys are good, and they're very polite towards you. So you be happy that the kidneys are very courteous towards you. They didn't remove the kidney. So just imagine that is another surgery for you. You have to go for the surgery, and they don't remove during the operation or transplantation. They would have removed it. They would have removed it much before this becomes another surgery for you. So you are saved. So you don't have to worry about. Then the second part of your question is that, is it really working a little bit? Yes. Why we don't remove the kidneys which are damaged? You will be cursing. See, these are the bad kidneys which are damaged, which have troubled me. But still, even after the death also, the kidneys are functioning by 2%, 3%, 4%. The native kidneys are, even if they are small, contracted, if they are inside the body, they do little bit of good to you. I am telling you, for every bad in the life for the body, there will be something good adjacent to that. It is only your tendency to look at what is good in that. So that particular damaged kidney, which really spoiled the so-called, as per your thinking process, the spoil your life, troubled you so much, still it will be functioning a little bit, which will take care of your body. If both the kidneys are removed, there will be a lot of other problems. That shows that the native kidneys, which are bad, small, contracted, diseased, if they remain in the body, they do some kind of a good to you. So that is the beauty of the nature. So don't think bad by thinking that the doctor did not remove your kidneys. Still they're helping you by producing some amount of hormones, some amount of good filtration, some amount of goodness which is unknown. The science will not really tell you, but we know the people with the kidneys inside, with the people without the kidneys inside, and how they behave, how bad they are without kidneys inside. So don't worry about it.
Yes, because doctor, it has been said that nephrectomy is more painful actually. The putting in an organ.
Why do you have to go for another surgery?
Yes, taking out an organ. So including my brother, who is a kidney patient, he's got 3 kidneys and he's still on dialysis. And he says, I need to remove a kidney. And I keep telling him there's no need to remove it, because the removal process is actually not traumatic for a body. So if you have your 3 kidneys or your 2 kidneys, or some of the friends we have got 4 kidneys, and you don't need to remove it, trust me, there's something good, as doctor said just now.
Yeah, your brother has got 3 kidneys, that is 2 bad, and 1 is a new kidney, transplanted. So no problem. He can love all the 3 actually.
Exactly.
He can love all the 3. After the marriage also, he can still love his old girlfriends.
Oh,
so tell your brother. Tell your brother.
Thank you. Doctor, we have one more question right now. It says, I have polycystic kidney disease and sometimes I get abdominal pain and protein loss. Why does this happen?
Pain is a feature of polycystic kidney disease. Unfortunately, you'll get excruciating pain. I know that because of the stretch of the kidney. Because you know that only fist, the kidney originally is a small size of a fist. But just imagine, instead of fist, there are 5 or 6 fists which are there in one place. In fact, your body is, that particular space is provided to the kidney only for the particular area only. And this kidney, a large kidney, polycystic kidney, tries to encroach other places also. How the body will react then? So naturally, there is a stretch of the muscles behind, muscles around. So naturally, there will be some kind of a pain which is already there. Not only that, as I told you, there can be stones. In fact, compared to the general population, the PKD people will have high tendency for stone formation. That's one reason. And also the cyst will bleed inside. So one small cyst will become very big and large with a lot of blood inside. So there also they'll get excruciating pain. But unfortunately, when the muscle pain is there, it is a very frequent phenomenon with backache, severe backache. They can't even sit properly. So they get improvement only with the physiotherapy. There's something called Alexander technique. So they can go for an Alexander technique and they can read about it and they can go to the physiotherapist and just see that your back is actually good. Otherwise, you'll get a severe excruciating pain. I know that. There are textbooks written on pain in PKD. Pain in PKD, there are textbooks written. There are textbooks written means you can understand how bad the pain is going to be. So you don't worry about that. Take a small painkillers, something like muscle relaxant, paracetamol, but go for a good physiotherapist and talk to them about the Alexander technique of pain relief in the physiotherapy, and you'll get a relief definitely. But it comes over a period of time. Don't expect that today you went for physiotherapy, next day it disappears. No. Nothing will happen so miraculously in the world. And nature is not to give a miracles to you actually. Nature will never do like that. Nature pampers you like a mother. Nature is not like a father where you just suddenly ask money and father will give you 1,000 rupees. Mother will never give you that. So
yes. All right. Doctor, actually, you've already answered this question earlier. And so it is self-explanatory. None of my family members have had kidney disease. Then how is it that my son has the Alport syndrome? As you said, yes, not everything is given to everybody. So maybe that's why.
See, autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive are the 2 forms. Of course, X-linked also are there in Alport syndrome. The thing is that autosomal dominant runs in families. Everybody in the family, even parents, children, everybody will get. Autosomal recessive, it is actually horizontal. It is only one generation only will get. Next generation will not get. So autosomal dominant is vertical. Vertical means the grandfather, father, son, everybody gets it. Autosomal recessive, only one generation of people only will get. In that also, some people will escape. So it is actually as I stated, that some of the genes will get nullified in some of the bodies. So that's why your parents will not be having, and you are not having, your son can have. The interesting thing is your grandson will not have that disease again. It's only one generation of the people will get. That's called autosomal recessive. Alport's has got autosomal recessive component also.
Okay. Now we move on to the next question, doctor, which is the Alport syndrome a genetic disease or is it a genetic disorder?
This kind of semantics, I really to be very don't know. But even I can talk poetic about disease and the disorder. So disease only puts a disorder, okay, and disease is actually a nature product. A disorder is the one how you make it. So you can make an entire thing into a disorder. So that's what actually is called disorder. But disease is a disease. Disease is actually a pathological entity for the doctors to say. And a disorder is actually what we think and what are the manifestations of that. So disorder can really involve so many other organs also, other entities also. For example, kidney disease is there. It is a disease. But when the bones are involved, it gets fractured and the heart is involved, gets failed and gets into some blood clot in the brain or with the feral system. These are called disorders. So which is the manifestations of the disease. So Alports can be like that, and there are so many other entities also there with Alports. But Alports is a disease. It can be called as a syndrome also many a time because it's multiple organs are involved in that. But Alports disease is actually a disease which can lead to a disorder if you don't really care for that.
Thank you. How does genetical deviation straight away results in acting of kidney functions, affecting the kidney functions, and does it affect other organs as well?
Means all the diseases, genetic disorders are only few. I didn't get you. First, initially, what is the first part?
So what he says is that any genetical deviation straight away results in affecting the kidney function in this particular situation. How does it result in dialysis or transplant? And does this affect any other organs when it happens, when the genetic?
No, yeah. It is very interesting to know that the genes which involve only manifest in the form of kidney disease. So when you get a new kidney, it won't really, because the genes manifest only in your kidney only, not in the body. If you get a foreign kidney, it won't really manifest in that. That is a beauty again. So for example, PKD genes are there. PKD genes are there in your kidneys only, and they manifest only within the kidney. When you get a PKD, say kidney from your, say for example, you are known to relative, unrelated. For example, your wife gives you the kidney. Wife is an unrelated person, and she gives the kidney, and you won't get the same gene in the new kidney also. That's what your gene disappears the moment that your kidney is removed or kidney failed. That's all. And the new kidney will not have such kind of a disease. That shows that your genes manifest only in your kidneys only. For example, liver disease, your genes will manifest only in your liver disease or liver only. If you get a new liver, then that's not a problem at all. So that's the beauty of the nature again.
So, but that's a little different from IgA nephropathy, because IgA nephropathy could be.
Yes. There are some diseases which because these are the things which run in that blood. So whatever is there in the flows in the blood, for example, FSGS, there's some unknown entity called some permeable factor is there that is labeled as a permeable factor. So that flows in the blood. So that will see wherever the blood is there, it will go. But how can you remove totally your blood and put a new blood into your blood, which is not possible. So the kidney will get new kidney also. That is called recurrence of the disease. New kidney also will get affected. But the genes which will determine your kidney structure function within the kidney will disappear the moment the kidney fails, and the new kidney will not get into that. So that is again the beauty of the nature. But the science research is going on about how to determine that particular entities which are flowing in the blood. So that can be removed totally and comfortable. In fact, that is actually the human body, human intelligence is put into question. Human intelligence is put into question. That's why exploring this nature, exploring the science will get so many answers. And we could find out that this the blood substance in the blood is making that, and this is the same substance which is attacking the new kidney also again. So our role is actually even more simpler. Now we have to find out what is the substance and how to remove that. See the beauty. In nature, every question will have some answer, but answer will sometimes come very late, because most of the things in the nature are backbenchers, so they answer very late.
But they answer all the same. So that
answer will come, but it will be very late.
As in Hindi, they say, "No, der aaye, lekin durust aaye." When the
yes,
answer is absolutely perfect. Move on to another question, which is, what is the change in chromosomes and genes from the original one that results in kidney failure?
In fact, very few diseases only we know what are the chromosomes involved, like autosomal dominant, chromosome 16, chromosome 4, and so many other disorders also we know which chromosomes are involved and what are the genes related to that. As one table I showed you also some of the genes. But unfortunately, as such, many people will have kidney failure of unexplained reasons. They just come to us with a small contracted kidneys, unfortunately. And there can be some drug which they take and the kidney gets into damage. But we don't know what are the genes involved in that. The science is still exploring a lot. I'm telling you, in fact, the genome project is going on. We'll know probably at the time of birth itself what are all the diseases which are going to face in our life. So it is something like that. So like the father who gives birth to a newborn, the child, the father will tell you, so we have 10 acres of land here and 100 acres of land there. We have these many properties. Your mother has got 100 tulos of gold. And also you have 10 diseases which I'm going to enumerate. So one day or the other, the newborn will get such a list of properties along with the diseases also, because of the genome project, which is going to come. Probably it will take a few decades, but definitely we are going to chase that, and the scientists are going to come out with some series of genetic disorders which will be given to the newborn child at the time of birth itself. So that we'll be very careful about that. Nothing problematic, but we'll be very careful about that.
So, sir, you've actually answered my next question, which is, does kidney failure run in the family by making it hereditary? So you just said that sometimes it can
Yes,
come,
yes.
sometimes it
Many
can't come.
few cases actually, but I'll tell you, whoever has got a kidney disease in the family, I think better to screen all the siblings. Better to screen all the siblings. For example, a 25-year-old boy has got kidney disease of any etiology, any etiology. Please keep on screening the other children also, which is very important. For example, I'll tell you the breast cancer. When we were students, and probably long back when my teachers were the students, breast cancer is something like a cancer which affects only one generation. Now they found that so many genes related to breast cancer, they found that it runs in families. If a mother has got a breast cancer, her sisters and her daughters also have a type tendency. Sometimes even the sons also will have a tendency for breast cancer. So the genes were detected later. So don't worry about whether the genes are there or not. To be on safe side, as I stated, the kidney disease, genetic disorder, better to screen for the protein, creatinine, hypertension. So screening is simple. Check the blood pressure, check the urine for protein, check the serum creatinine, check the ultrasound scan for the kidney structure. These are the 4 entities you can screen, which is just not even 1,000 rupees. So everybody in the family should get screened for this particular 4. But I'm telling you, 99% of the times you are normal. 99% of the times you are normal, despite spending 1,000 rupees and checking all the 4. But you please get screened, which is very, very important. No harm in checking it. You'll be afraid if you detect early, then I'll be mentally bad, mentally, psychologically depressed or something like that. I'm telling you, it gives a lot of solace, lot of peace to you that you know that answer what is going to be there's afterwards. My brother always used to be very comfortable before the intermediate results because he knows very well that he's going to fail. So he's never bothered actually, never felt bad also that he never ran behind the newspaper to see his result on the newspaper. He used to, before only he used to tell that anyhow I'm going to fail, no, what is the problem? So it's such a kind of a comfort and a coolness. So don't have to worry about for the screening. Better get screened. Anybody with a family with a kidney disease, you better get screened. That's very, very important.
Sir, the next question, of course, will not have any of it. Is, a little poignant, and it is a little bit serious also. And that would be, what is the life expectancy of someone with PKD, and is it possible to live a long life with this disease?
I already told you that I have a grandfather who is in 70s and 80s. On the contrary, the same, unfortunately, his grandson had kidney failure in 25, 26. I already told you that. That shows that it is actually, you can stretch. And also, I told you also that the beauty of PKD is that it will manifest so late, many times 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. Despite having a PKD, you don't have to have a renal failure. I also told you the answer that only 7 to 10% only will have renal failure. So all the answers I already told you. So don't worry that it's a PKD. So PKD, I show you 70s and 80s people who are coming to my OPDs with a grandson who can, in fact, just now, half an hour back, my patient's son who's on dialysis, father is dialysis, the son just like that had problem. I told him long back to get screened. He did not go to the doctor. Naturally, they won't listen to the doctors because we pamper them and they just don't care us like the way we don't care our parents. So he did not bother. Today morning he had abdominal pain, just like that. So without even telling me, he simply went and got ultrasound done and he sent the report. He has PKD. Everything else is okay. No stones, nothing. He has a PKD. I told him 3 years back that, Array, you better get a screen, better. Your father has got a PKD renal failure at the age of 58. You better get screened. This boy at the age of 24, he has got a PKD. But I'm telling you, he need not have any renal failure. He need not have any renal failure in his lifetime only. That's what I'm telling you. You get screened. You don't have to worry about it. You get screened. I'm telling you, you'll become more alert and you'll be more conscious and you'll be more practical in your life as far as the disease entity is concerned. You don't have to get frightened by knowing about it.
So, sir, that's what I want to ask you now. So it's not necessary that somebody who has PKD will go into end-stage renal disease.
No.
Transplant.
No. It's a small percentage of people only will have. See, he will have a cystic kidney when in 40s and 50s when you screen. When you don't have a PKD in 20s and 30s, it is very difficult that you will never fail. If you have a PKD seen in 20s, probably in 50s you will have some kidney problem. When you don't have it in 20s and you see PKD, you keep on screening every second year, third year, like that in 40s and 50s, you suddenly find that your PKD is there. but you never get a renal failure at all in your lifetime. So that's the beauty of PKD actually. That's why the generations are there. That's why you are still seeing the people with the PKD. Otherwise, it is something like a dinosaur. You would have actually forgotten, like the way you forgotten about the dinosaurs, you also forgotten about the PKD. Why you are reading about the PKD is basically because it won't kill just like that everyone. It won't kill just like that. It won't have any kind of a disease just like that. When the disease comes in 60s and 70s, okay, no problem. You are more comfortable with the disease in 60s and 70s because you already by that time you'll be fed up of seeing the same TV serials again and again, watching same TV shows of Republic TV, Arnab Goswami, क्योंकि सास भी बहू होती है, and same kind of a politicians again and again. You'll be bored of your life. So better to have some kind of a disease so that you'll have some entertainment of your own. So don't worry about it.
So it's always so wonderful talking to you because you make us feel so happy about it, because I do believe that happiness and positivity is the one thing that's going to keep you healthier than everything. And now we move on to another question which is related to this, which is, what are the stages of PKD? How serious is PKD? And what are actually the warning signs of kidney problems, which you've already told us. So many things like blood pressure, and then of course some trace in the family. You said about diabetes. If you've had anybody close to you also having it, an occasional screening would be there. If you found something in your 20s, you repeat it every 2 years, right?
Yes.
But honestly, how serious is PKD and what are its stages?
See, PKD is seen in almost 1 in 1,000 people in United States statistics at least. In our country, it is not known. But I feel that it is also the same approximately in our country also. 1 in 1,000 population will have PKD. But it's actually, I've seen the families with the PKD. And in fact, not in the families. And there are 7 siblings. And all the 7 siblings are now in 60s. And their children, some of them are doctors. They're still with me. And all of them are okay. Of which only one senior most son, the sibling, who is actually the age of 72, 74, he died of renal failure. He died of renal failure. And rest of all the people, all the 7 siblings and their children, including the grandchildren, are in my follow-up. None of them are having. But people in 50s and 60s having PKD, but creatinine is absolutely normal. Creatinine is absolutely normal. So CKD staging, the way we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is also seen with the PKD also. But the interesting aspect is that some of the disorders are they're very, very slow. PKD, if you are in stage 1, for example, stage 2, I'll take. Say you're in stage 2. To going to stage it will take 10, 15 or 12, 20 years also many times. So you'll be labeled as PKD, CKD, what peak polycystic kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, stage 2. And you are labeled in 2010. And you'll be labeled as 2025, you'll be labeled as CKD stage 3. So that is the fun aspect of PKD. So it will be very, very, very slowly progressive for over decades. But it is only a major portion, but a small portion, around 5 to 8% of the portion, people will have a rapid deterioration. That's what I said. Grandfather is still good. But unfortunately, the grandson had renal failure. So who is this fellow? The one who got renal failure so early, very, very difficult to predict. It's very difficult. That's why I say get screened and follow it up very, very carefully. You don't have to worry about if you get screened, and you'll get some kind of a treatment, which is much better than having no treatment at all. And having some knowledge is much better than having no knowledge at all. And some have a kind of an alertness is better than having not alert at all. So everything is actually important in life.
Yes, absolutely. I do agree. In fact, many of us, we just get scared, and the kind of information that's available on the net is too much. And so we know so many things, but we don't know how to apply it in our lives.
Yes.
And basically, if we are related to people and we do have these situations in our lives, we would need to be more aware. It's like only when you hear the big word cancer that you do things like this. But my brother has an autoimmune disease because it's IgA nephropathy. I have thyroid, which is an autoimmune disease. And because of that, we're constantly checking. So when you're constantly checking, you're always on the ball. Don't be scared, because a small headache can be cured with 1 crocin, but if you let it be, it'll just keep on and on and on. So as Dr. Raju said, I think we really must respect our bodies and start looking after it by checking things out. So now, Doctor, I go on to the next question, which is, what is a nephrotic syndrome? Is it an autoimmune disease, or can it be genetic? Usually described by doctors as idiopathic. Is there a known cause?
Nephrotic syndrome, as I stated in one of the slides, that it's passing large amounts and huge amounts of protein in the urine. but it can be secondary to the kidney disease alone. It can be secondary to some other disorder of the body which can affect the kidney secondarily. Okay, that's called secondary nephrotic syndromes, and of which you also have a diabetes. Diabetes also can have a lot of protein in the urine, which is something like a nephrotic syndrome only. When it is more than 3.5 grams, it is nephrotic syndrome. So SLE is a systemic disorder, and every body, many organs in the body are affected, but kidney also gets affected with a lot of protein leakage in the urine. Again, they can have a nephrotic syndrome. So these are the two things. So what you said idiopathic is one where you don't have any kind of a thing which is related only to the kidney alone. Only kidney is the one which is involved. Mostly it is seen in the childhood. So it is idiopathic means actually it is actually not idiopathic. It is a minimal chain disease, or no reason is found out. Most of the times it is genetic disorder and no genes are detected yet. So nephrotic syndrome can be treated very aggressive if you treat very aggressively with the steroids in the childhood and some of the ACE inhibitors, ARBs in the adults, and you can comfortably treat it. And that should not be a problem at all. And we can postpone the derangement of the kidney function by several years and the decades if you are treated very early. I'm telling you, that's why the family members should be screened. Everyone should be screened properly. Everybody should be screened properly. So I can tell you that in 2002, I have seen second brother of three siblings I have seen. He came to us and immediately he died within 3 to 4 days with a small contracted kidneys. So I was a very young assistant professor in 2002 and lot of energy, enthusiasm. And I used to talk to the people in a very big way and for hours together. Even now I speak, actually, that's not a big entity, but it's not like the way I used to be into when I was 31 that time. So I can't be the same now. So I used to talk to them, and then I was very energetic, and I used to be something like a good teacher. Like I used to think that I'm a teacher for everyone. So I used to call the attendants and I used to speak about. Then the other two siblings also, I called them and I told them to get screened. So the first one, who is a 34-year-old, he got screened. To his shock, his kidneys are small, creatinine was 3. He got shocked actually. Dr. Saab, I'm totally, absolutely normal. And now I was worried about my brother only. Now he's also almost sick. And what to do? I said, don't worry, you just come for the follow-up. Unfortunately, the second fellow who came for the first time, he died. And the first fellow, the third fellow also came. He was in the 8th class or 9th class that time. So we screened. His urine was absolutely normal. I told them to get him in every summer during the summer vacation. So 9th class, 10th class, inter, the +1, +2, engineering first year, second year, third year engineering, that fellow came to me again in the summer. He found 4+ protein. So then I did the biopsy. It was FSGS. It is familial FSGS, with which the second fellow died. Unfortunately, the first fellow also died. Very interestingly, he started after 15 years of kidney disease known to him. He suddenly get depressed. Then he started taking homeopathy and all funny nonsensical tablets here and there, some jadi bhutia and all indigenous drugs, and he suddenly died. He came to me, and within less than a day, within a few hours only, he died in a very sick state. Now the third fellow is in my follow-up since a very, very long time. He's doing very well now. He finished engineering and he got married, and his proteinuria has subsided with the drug therapy, and his kidney function is slightly deranged, but now he's into 30s now, late 30s almost, like he's doing well. So not to worry about that, but we can postpone. Now he understood that there's a life beyond kidney failure. When you know that there's a life beyond kidney failure, then why do you have to worry about it? Rather, you fight with it today itself, no problem.
Yes. Thank you, doctor. Now we move on to saying, what are the precautions of the Alport syndrome, the line of treatment, diet, and of course, the overall impact on a child's growth?
So child will have other features also, something like a vision. So which is very, very important for you people to screen the children. And not only if one child is found to have Alport's, then see that all the children, even his cousins also should be screened according to me. It's better to screen the cousins of the mother. If the mother has got a son with Alport's, she should alert her brothers and sisters also and screen the children. And also all of them better get screened. And because not only the kidney alone, the vision and auditory functions are also very important. If the child has got an auditory problem in the childhood, their speech, everything will get affected. Naturally, whatever hear, we speak out. So isn't it? So naturally, there'll be some problem, technical and practical problems also. So better to screen the child for the vision as well as the auditory capacities, which is very important. And screen all the children and see that their renal functions, everything is actually get tested once in 4 to 6 months properly. Even if they are normal, better to screen them very frequently, and which is very, very important. And don't keep the disease to the restrict the body disease only to the body, not to get into the brain. So don't frighten the child, because there are children, they won't understand anything. Don't frighten the child that you have Alports, you have Alports, you have Alports. Why do you have to tell the child that you have Alports? So tell them that it is going to the doctor uncle is another important entity in life. Like the way we go to shopping malls and theaters, once in 4 months or 6 months, you go to the doctor uncle also and say hello to the doctor uncle and come back. And don't tell them that they are going to the laboratory. Rather, you can send some urine tests sometimes just like that, and send it to the laboratory and see for the protein. And the kidney is deranged. Once in a year, you can get tested for the kidney disease. So don't frighten the child unless they get in until they become 14 or 15-year-old, where they can understand the disease properly. A child can never understand. I'm telling you, child can never understand the disease, and frightening them will affect their intellectual functions. They will not be good in the studies, and scholastic performances will go down. So don't frighten the child, and rather it should be something like a play. And I'm telling you, nephrotic syndrome, I have so many children whom I am treating, and many of them, they don't even know that I am their doctor. They know that I am a doctor uncle only to them, because I do some WhatsApp chat with them, and sometimes I talk to them by video call, hello. Many of them are in other countries, US and Sweden. And even within Hyderabad, interesting thing is that there are two brothers whom I am treating within Hyderabad, and they don't even know that I am their doctor. Their mother only is in touch with me with the urine examination protein, and I keep on changing the doses. They don't even know. And I've seen the child long back. Now I've seen the child with the beard and mustache. I got surprised. He's the same child whom I've seen long back. That's what I'm telling you. You don't have to push the disease into the heart and the brain. So let the disease be restricted to the kidneys alone.
Thank you. That's so true. We must not scare people, because once we're scared, then we automatically lose our senses.
And I'm telling you, it will change the psyche of the child. It will change the psyche of the child. So you see, it's not so easy to modify that by psyche of the adult only. Then what about the children? They're very simple creatures actually. Better not to trouble them.
True. We move on to a next section, which is about what is actually autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, which is ADPKD. What are the signs, symptoms, and causes of ADPKD, and why is there pain in this particular?
I told you also already the answers. ADPKD, I said, the autosomal dominant is the one which runs in families by 100%, with 100%, near 100% penetrance, and everybody will have it. The pain is because of the stretch of the large kidneys, and also sometimes the stones, sometimes the bleeding, sometimes the infection within the kidney also will stress the kidney. And also the big cysts which are there in the kidney. So that's why the pain. So pain management is very, very important. I know that it will be sometimes very tricky and painful. And with the physiotherapy and all, you can definitely do that.
And what are the stages, doctor, of ADPKD and renal failure in this particular disease?
There are no stages in that. It's the same. CKD stages are the same. We don't have separate stages for the PKD. I told you that even from one stage of CKD to the chronic kidney disease, the same stage of chronic kidney disease is applicable even to the polycystic kidney disease also. And from one stage to the other stage, it takes decade and more to from one stage. If you are labeled as stage CKD, it's called chronic kidney disease, secondary to the polycystic kidney disease in stage 2. By the time you reach stage 4, it will be 20-25 years. So it is such a long, it is something like an Hindi TV serial in Star Plus. So for years and years and years and years, it will go on continuing. And many times the hero will die 2 times or 3 times also. Only thing is that after 10 episodes, he will come back again. So same kind of a TV serial you will be seeing even with a PKD for several decades.
All right. So ADPKD for adults and a less common type of PKD occurs in babies and children, consist of fluid-filled pouches, primarily in kidney, and they affect other organs also.
Yes.
Is an inherited disorder that causes mild to severe life-threatening Alport syndrome and Batter syndrome and juvenile nephronephrosis. What is TSC and what is BHL disease? Are they all connected or they're all different?
See, every adult with the pouches in the kidney with the fluid-filled pouches need not be autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. We need to differentiate that. One such differential diagnosis is this particular von Hippel-Lindau disease. Von Hippel-Lindau disease, VHL disease, is also associated with the tuberous sclerosis. In fact, I showed you one of the photographs that is called that is adenoma sebaceum, which is there on the face, a small cyst. That is called tuberous sclerosis. They also will have cysts in the kidney. But thing is that they have a high tendency to form some tumors in the kidney also at the same time. So unlike ADPKD will not have any kind of a kidney tumors or the kidney cancers or something like that. But these people probably might develop some kind of a kidney tumors called angiomyolipomas and other things. So small cysts, again the cysts only, but the behavior of the cyst is something different. So that's what. All that wheezes is not asthma. Everybody who has some sounds from the chest during the difficulty in breathing need not be called as asthma. So that can be heart disease, that can be lung disease, that can be kidney disease. So if every time difficulty in breathing, don't have to call them as asthma. Like the way all the kidneys with a small fluid-filled cysts, the pouches need not be called as ADPKD. They can be some other entities, which is very, very important. So every disease has got its own way of going ahead. So that's why we need to differentiate the differential diagnosis. That's why the diagnosis is very, very important. Once you are labeled with some diagnosis, it's okay. But how to arrive at the diagnosis, that's why you need to go to the doctor. Otherwise, Google is there and Google will tell you each and everything. And everybody is very knowledgeable by reading the Google. Then why do you have to go to the doctor? Then doctors are there to tell you what exactly is the diagnosis.
So doctor, I wanted to ask you one more thing. And of course, it's a repetition, but I think each person wants to know their own answers.
Yes,
and
yes.
Really clarified. So we know that cystic kidney failure, we have it. Is it really genetic? And what are the precautions that one can take to avoid it?
Yes, yes. See, as I stated, it's a genetic disorder only PKD, but only thing is that you have to have a genetic screening and genetic screening before marriage. So it is sometimes very important. And even during the pregnancy also, people will have a PKD screening. One interesting point of PKD is that there are two varieties of PKD, PKD1 and PKD2. When compared to PKD1, PKD2 genes manifest a bit slowly and late, and also it's not so problematic. And that's why many people with a PKD will live longer. Like grandfather will have a PKD1 and he will survive till the age of 70s and 80s. So many people will have a PKD gene, but it is not so problematic for many people. That's why we need to better to have a screening, genetic screening, whether to know whether you are PKD1 or PKD2. So PKD2 has a better prognosis compared to the PKD1. So genetic screening is very important. The only way you want to know more about your disease of PKD is that you get a genetic screening done, and that is genetic analysis to know whether PKD1 or PKD2. That will be better for you, many people. And especially before the marriage, if they know it, and if they at the time of conception, if they know it also, is okay, no problem.
Now we move on to a next question, which is about IgA nephropathy. How does it impact children, and what is the percentage of age when it reoccurs?
Percentage of?
The age of recurrence of IgA nephropathy.
IgA nephropathy in children is very less actually. Usually IgA nephropathy is seen in 20s and 30s. But you can see even in 70s, you can see even in 10, 20s. I have children with IgA nephropathy incidentally detected. They were labeled as nephrotic syndromes, they were labeled as proteinuria, hematuria, just like that. And when we did a biopsy, it was IgA nephropathy. But IgA nephropathy is seen in children also, but very, very rare compared to the adults. It is mostly the adult disease. And if you see, whatever may be that the many people with IgA nephropathy will not have renal failure. There's a description called 20% of the people in 20 years will have renal failure. So what about the 80%? Then 80% will not have any kidney failure only. So we don't have to. Yeah, IgA nephropathy has got varied manifestations. Many people with IgA nephropathy will have only blood in the urine, blood in the urine in 20s, 30s, 40s, only blood in the urine, nothing else, no problem. And some people will have only high blood pressure. Other than high blood pressure, nothing will be there in them. Only they'll get treatment for hypertension. Some people will have a little bit of proteinuria, hypertension, and many people will have a small kidney damage which will run for 20 years and 30 years. A person who is detected to have a IgA nephropathy in 20s, they'll have a kidney failure in 58 and 62 or 64. In 2002, which I have done a biopsy for many, and even now they're in my follow-up, they're absolutely normal. They got married, they got children. Even now their kidney is normal only. So that is the IgA nephropathy. But only 15 to 20% of these IgA nephropathy people will have a kidney failure. Unfortunately, 5 to 10% of this 5% of this kidney IgA nephropathy will have a very rapid course. Within few weeks, their kidney will fail. That is called crescentic transformation. But unfortunately, we see them also. Though it looks if you put all the IgA nephropathies together, it's a small percentage. But for an individual, it is a life only. No, for him also, it is a life. So some people will deteriorate their kidneys in just a few weeks only. That is also unfortunate thing with IgA nephropathy.
So that's what happened to my brother. He deteriorated overnight, literally.
Yes. There's a small percentage of people in IgA nephropathy.
he went on to 11 point something,
Yes.
and that it happened post 40. It was not even in the 20s and 30s, and therefore the chance.
When is that? When?
So when he was 40 years old.
40. Okay.
So now we go to the next question, which is what you've already answered, doctor, that IgA nephropathy need not lead to CKD. So I'm not asking you the question that does it lead to CKD? He just said that sometimes it could maybe about 15%, and out of that 15%, very few percentage where it can just go downhill and go south in no time,
Yes.
like in 8 weeks. Is IgA nephropathy inherited?
Yes. I've seen the families having it. First cousins. One fellow who could listen to me in 2003 when I went to a software company and gave a talk about diseases. So he got up and he asked me about IgA nephropathy. Then I told him that you better get screened. And he smiled, and after the talk he came to me say that Dr. Saab, I recently detected to have IgA nephropathy. Then I told him. Then he said, sir, you said some genetic, is it important? Then I said, yes. He's such an intelligent, intellectual fellow. He is US now. He's just now, 2 weeks back, he called me. Then he screened many of his relatives. Then he came back and got the list of his relatives. His first cousin, his mother's elder sister's son has got a kidney failure and got transplanted. And his uncle's paternal uncle, a related person, one person has got a biopsy done, which is IgA nephropathy with normal renal function. We had proteinuria. And like that, many of the cousins have got some protein, some RBCs in the urine. And many of them did not go for biopsy, but they had proteinuria, hematuria like that. He found like that when he screened 150 people, 15 people he found abnormality, of which one fellow had already renal failure and transplanted. It is something like that. See, after 150, one fellow suspected to have some kidney problem. That's what I'm telling you. It can run in families, but it is random. Everybody need not really develop. And it can be a third generation, or probably it can be your fourth generation cousin, or fourth degree cousin, fourth degree or fifth, something like that. So everybody need not manifest in their lifetime.
Yeah, because in my family, the immediate family on both sides, so all the 4 sides, the first, second, third cousins, nobody has.
You have to go up to your great grandfather. Then you can screen his grandchildren.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see good number actually. That's what this boy did. He took his surname and he went to all his people with the mother side and father side. He checked all the surnames of the people and he went on screening 150 people like that. Of which 15 people he found some abnormality.
I think he should join the government because he'll do much better than what's happening in India.
Yes.
I think so. All right. So now, does reflux nephropathy arise after transplantation?
No. But after transplantation also reflux can come. It is actually surgical abnormal anatomy. We modify the anatomy of the ureter. We forcibly put a ureter into the bladder. So there can be some laxity of that with which actually it will come up. So reflux can be seen after several years after the transplantation, unfortunately. But I'm telling you, this is not the recurrence of the original reflux disease. It's not because of that. It is because of the surgical entity.
And what is DMS?
DMSA?
DMS, yes.
DMS disease?
Yes.
Diffuse mesangial sclerosis also is a disease, unfortunately affects the children. So they get into renal nephrotic syndrome. They come with a nephrotic syndrome. And when we do biopsy, it is shown a diffuse mesangial sclerosis. But unfortunately, these people will have a progression very rapidly and they get a renal failure very fast and quick. This is genetically mediated. In fact, one of the table which I showed in the table, that is one of the manifestations of genetic disorder. It's a very strong genetic tendency. You're able to hear me? It is silent. You're able to hear me?
Is B positive and my father, the donor, is A positive. I want to know.
I didn't hear you. It was silent for some time. Can you repeat the question?
So the last question today is that my transplant failed due to IgN, protein leak. And now after 9.5 years, I plan to go for ABO-compatible transplant where my blood group is B positive and my donor, that is my father, is A positive. I want to know how successful this ABO-incompatible ABO will be in the presence of IgN. Should I go ahead with this? And has there been any success stories?
See, ABO incompatible transplantations are good in 50% of the cases. So 50% of the cases, it may not be good. It is still in experimental phases only. But there are several people are doing in our country. And after so many years, if you want to go for a transplantation again, why don't you go in a more methodical way? Go for a rather cadaver transplantation with your blood group match, rather than going with your father. Your father must be aging along with you, and he must be in 60s or something like that, because you already lost kidney 9 years back. That shows that if you get to get transplanted in 20s and you enjoy the life for a few years, then lost the kidney after 9 years back, you must be in 30s and 40s. That shows that your father will be to 60 and all. He's an aged kidney. So though it's ABO incompatible, if you really go for transplantation, and ABO incompatible itself has got so many problems. And added to that, IgA nephropathy. And you don't have to worry about IgA nephropathy, because IgA nephropathy really need not really manifest. I have a patient with IgA nephropathy who got renal failure, got transplanted, and doing very, and lost the kidney secondary to IgA nephropathy after 4 years. Then again he got transplanted after 2 years, and now he's doing very well without any problem. He got married and having kids also now. So it means that, in fact, originally it manifested it within 1 year. Now, even after 7th year, he did not manifest IgA nephropathy alone. So that's what I'm telling you. Probably the disease also gets bored, gets fed up of you and your body, and you must be cursing the disease again and again. No, it gets bored. Probably it will not manifest again and again. So don't have to worry. But I'm telling you, the life is always a complex one. The life is complex basically because life is not complex. We make the life more complex, actually. It is our understanding. So when you lost the graft again, and the transplantation process, it's slightly an experimental mode. And it is just a lottery, like whether you be good or not. So why do you have to make it more complex by thinking about ABO incompatible? So ABO incompatible, you can do it once. And why do you have to make it? I'm telling you, if you lose the kidney secondary to the ABO incompatible, you can't even go for another transplantation again. And your body anatomy, structure, physiology changes a lot. So why do you have to go into that? Because I have done 3 transplants for one patient and without any problem. Luckily, some of them are all related. One is cadaver. So you plan for cadaver transplantation rather than going ahead with your father after 9.5 years. After 9.5 years, that too ABO incompatible. Just because the science has come, and this is the story of ABO incompatible is not 50, always 50% this way, that way. If you're on the other side of the 50%, then it's difficult actually. And moreover, your father at this age losing a kidney also is of no good value. And if sacrifice will not be of any value unless you enjoy the kidney for at least 20-30 years. You may just imagine how a 60-year-old kidney will be of good to you for another 20-30 years. That too, ABO incompatible will retaliate back, saying that this is not the method properly done at any point of your time in your life. So why do you have to go for that? Don't experiment with your body second time or the third time. First time it's okay, but second time, third time, logically it doesn't look good. So you may prove me wrong. You may prove me wrong saying that, so Dr. Saab, my ABO incompatible is doing well on second year. But the second day after that, it may not be correct, I'm telling you. So it is always this way, that way. Every day is something like a question for you. The day you get up in the morning with whether it's okay or not, the kidney today. And thank God that today is gone without any problem. And you that before going to the bed, you always think that. So ABO incompatible is still in experimental mode. Wait for some more time and be on good dialysis. Keep yourself happy and healthy for some more time. Either you get a cadaver kidney, you go ahead and see whatever may be said and done. You keep your body fit. I'm telling you, keeping the body fit is the most essential component in renal failure. If your body is good and fit, then you can take second, 7th kidney also, 10th kidney also. I don't have any problem. But experimenting at this juncture with your body may not be good. I don't know how fit you are. Keep your body fit, I'm telling you. Wait for cadaver transplantation. Don't immediately go ahead with ABO incompatible, and wait for some time. Wait for some time. Don't be in a hurry.
You said something just now which kind of got me thinking. You say if you go for an ABO compatible transplant and if that fails, you can't go back for another transplant because your body changes, your anatomy changes.
Yes.
What does that mean? So suppose your first transplant is an ABO compatible and that fails, that means you can never have a transplant again.
Mostly, because these people will, I have some patients now who got transplanted outside with ABO, and their panel reactive antibodies, their antibodies they developed, and it is 100%. So this girl who got transplanted outside for the ABO, father as the donor and lost the graft, now he's on, for the past 7 years, she's on dialysis with me, and her PR is very high. The antibodies are developed so much in such a way that we need to go for desensitization. That's not a problem. We have done desensitization for others and we went ahead. But it is actually individual feeling whether they can go out comfortably or not. So ABO incompatible, Well, still in that many doctors are in the learning curve. So learning curve is a learning curve only. It is just slightly, it changes every time. You can fall down in that learning curve. You can have a plateau phase and you can escalate. But the learning is the learning. So why do you have to take the risk actually? When the science tells you that this is the method, it's just go ahead in a simple way.
And doctor, something that I would like to ask you is that when we have kidneys that have been rejected because of ABMR, how long before you can actually go in for another transplant?
So no problem. Wait for a few months. Actually, it is very difficult to say that in individual. It depends on individual only. We need to check PRA, panel reactive antibodies, and other things also. Looking at the antibodies, and if the antibodies are not there, you can go for transplant. We have done transplant. After 3 months or after 3 years also. 3 months also is good, and 3 years also is good. It all depends on how good you are and how fit you are and how antibodies in the body are there in that. It depends. I think better to give an individual answer looking at the reports rather than a gross generalized answer for everyone.
So, Dr. Raju, of course, we've learned a lot about our lives with any kind of kidney disease, but the most happy things that I would take away, and I think everyone should think about, first, of course, is your mental fitness. Second is, of course, your physical fitness, which is very important. Like another doctor friend of mine told me, before a transplant, you're going to be training like you're going for the world's biggest and fastest and longest marathon. The third thing that I took out, which I think all the men are going to love, is about how you said you can have as many kidneys in. Please remember that the Kidney Warriors page. So, sir, yes, you're back. I just wanted to tell you, we were talking about how you said that the 3 kidneys are like 3 girlfriends from your past and that you could have it. I'm sure the men would love that aspect.
Thinking good about your ex-girlfriend. No, what is wrong in thinking good about ex-girlfriend?
So, raat gayi, baat gayi kind of thing. So that is wonderful. But also, we also learned about how the mother and what is genetic is not necessarily going to be given to you. You're not inheriting everything that your family gives you, even if they have 10 acres or they have 50,000 diamonds or anything like that. So sometimes it's just the chosen one that gets it. The most important takeaway for me from this is that if you have somebody in your family who has got it, even distantly related, early screening can help you.
Yes.
I mean, only when you see people like Angelina Jolie and things like that going and doing their BRCA testing do we say, okay, we should do it. But when we have it in your house, I think you must go ahead and test. And the thing is that we also have science and fantastic doctors like Dr. Raju here, who's told us, don't be scared by what the diagnosis is, because nature will form a solution for it. Right?
Yes.
So thank you so much.
You have put everything wonderfully in a nutshell. Actually, you have put everything. My entire lecture of 1 hour, 1.5 hours, you have put in few words wonderfully and gracefully. I'm really happy and very feeling good about it. Actually, you have done very well.
Thank you, sir. And can I just tell you something, since we are talking and we are also open about everything? You kept giving the example of, how people don't inherit what their parents do. And you kept talking about how the song sung by MS Subbulakshmi could not be sung by anybody else. So at this point, I kept laughing when you were saying that because honestly speaking, my mother is a singer. So I'm just thinking about...
You're not singer, no? Are you?
So I was just saying that, like you were talking about the singer, and it is so true in our family also. So when I was thinking about that, and of course, I think it skipped a generation because I can sing, but not like my mother, but definitely
naturally
talented as well. So sometimes it skips a generation, and you need to be worried, not be worried about it. Awareness is better than everything. The shortcut, of course, like doctor said, it's just you're going to say 1,000 rupees. Why should I do a blood test? Most often that blood test will show you that you wasted your money. But that 1% chance, so that 0.01% chance, it would save you a lifetime of misery and even more expenses, which goes into lakhs and crores. And I think now that we've had you, sir, on the Kidney Warrior Foundation, I think anybody who's part of our group and our NGO has access to you, and you'd be happy to talk
Yes.
to them and be with them and email them whenever.
Sure, sure. Definitely, definitely. It's my pleasure.
It's been absolutely wonderful, and we hope to see you soon once this COVID drama is over in Hyderabad itself.
Yes.
Or come to Cochin or wherever. We've got family all over. That is the Kidney Warriors family. And I think, but another thing that I wanted to add is that actually COVID is not going to scare a kidney patient. Because
Yes.
when you become a kidney patient, you automatically have to be so aware of your mask, your sanitization, where you eat. So all of us, actually, the caregivers and kidney patients, are one step ahead of all the people who are facing COVID, because this is not something new. So remember to keep washing your hands, wear your mask, stay home. Doctors are available on calls like this, and they're always by our side. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Sribhushan Raju. It's been
Thank
absolutely wonderful. Namaskaram. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you, Vandana. Thank you.
And all of you, please keep following us on our Instagram and Facebook pages, which is Kidney Warriors Foundation. We have a lot of groups, also support groups, which are there for you. Whichever stage of the disease you're in, we have groups that will support you, your family, and of course, the caregivers. And we will take care of you, hold your hands, and you will never feel alone. Because when we're there, there's really